Ellie, thank you very much indeed. I must say, well, first of all, actually, Ellie, thank you. That was fascinating, just that early part before we came onto the auditorium. It just goes to show you simply never stop learning. I learn every time I'm... Anyway, many thanks for that. And the other thing is, it really is good to join you in this auditorium scenario, guys. I mean, I not only learning about confident speaking, but also but also picking up on this new technology, which, you know, in months to come, I'm quite sure, hang on, I've lost the, there we go. In months to come, I'm sure this is going to get so much simpler and easier, but we really do, I feel that we're pioneers here. And it is fun to do it with you. There can't be many people on this planet, actually, who embark on this sort of an exercise and do the same. So great to be with you. Anyway, let me get on with the sort of speech proper. I wasn't sure whether there were going to be any new people, so I'm now going to, because I think you were all with me last time I spoke, so you've got a bit of a description of who I am. Maybe what I will do, though, quickly, is to say that while I was going around the world and working in the UK with Barclays, I did find myself increasingly in leadership positions. And you can't help, therefore, but pick up ideas and thoughts about what it is to make a leader. And what I do now, of course, is it seems to me that I am asked in that position to help. As much, I think, as a leader as anything else. So it has been quite helpful, this, because I've had to sit down and think, what makes a leader? There are hundreds and thousands of different types of leader, I believe. And that may sound slightly controversial, but as I work through this, you'll probably begin to understand where I'm coming from. Some leaders are basically evil. Some are very saintly. So whether you're looking from Hannibal to Hitler, or from Gandhi to Mandela, or from Margaret Thatcher to Greta Thunberg, they're all different in their own ways. And I wonder why that is. I have an idea which I'd like to share with you. And I'd like to do it like this. I'll say a few words on what makes a good leader, in my view, and give you an example. Then a few words on how each of you personally might want to think about that and take it on board. And then finally, if what I say stirs your gut, it may be doing so at a time when, if you choose to take it forward, you happen to be doing it at what I believe to be a turning point in the history of mankind, of humankind. Now, we haven't got time to go into that in detail, obviously, here, but I will touch on it. So, what makes a leader? What is it that is true to them all, whether they're good or bad? And I suggest to you that it is this. They have their beliefs and they stick to them. I call that conviction and commitment. Decades ago, when I first started work, I took to heart a saying about leaders which goes like this, and you've probably heard it before. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. I have come to see that as nonsense. Leadership, I believe, grows within you. It can't be bought. It can't be forced. It can't be faked. And I take one example of what I mean. Her name is Eleanor Roosevelt. Now, she was, as some of you may know, the wife of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, otherwise known as FDR, who was president of the United States of America and took America into the war and was largely responsible for the ultimate consequence, which was, of course, vanquishing Hitler and the Third Reich. He himself, of course, was a great leader. But I really want to pick Eleanor for a different reason. She had a very tough start. She lost both her parents before she was 10. That was a tragedy because she was particularly close to her father, and he committed suicide. She was no beauty. As a child, she had very little sense of self-worth. And on a rather more prosaic level, it turned out that she was an appalling housekeeper. People would decline to go to the White House when she was the First Lady because the food was so dreary and boring. Yet this lady is now seen as one of the greatest modern women leaders in the Western world. And the question is, how is that? I think it is because as she grew and as she grew up, conviction and commitment grew with her. So let me give you 3 examples to show you how that grew and how it developed, and give you a sense of this unfolding evolution within Eleanor Roosevelt as a leader. I want to pick 3 examples. 1, her role in championing the rights of colored people in the States. The second is her championing of equal rights for women. And the third is her championing of equal rights for humankind. Now let's take the first. And all I'm going to do is pick a small cameo which shows you how she was beginning to emerge as a leader. In those days, public meetings were split into 2. You had a section on one side of the auditorium for whites, and you had a section on the other side for blacks. When Eleanor Roosevelt went to speak for the first time as the First Lady of the United States of America at one of these events, she was, of course, pointed to the white section. She refused. And she pointed to the black section. Well, you can't sit there, they said. That's against the law. It's illegal. So she asked for a tape measure, and she proceeded to measure the width of the aisle between the 2 sections. She marked the midpoint, and she called for a chair. And she sat halfway between the white section and the black section. So half of her was in the white section and half of her was in the black section. Well, they couldn't prosecute half of her, and therefore they couldn't really prosecute her at all. And from that time on, she took a folding chair with her whenever she went to speak. Now let me move to the second stage of this evolution of a lady as a leader. Equal rights for women. At the time when she became First Lady of the United States, press conferences were all male. She set up press conferences for women only. It was quite simply a masterstroke, if master is the right gender to use for that. The media companies had not formally employed women to take roles like that as reporters, but they were forced to do so now. Because if they didn't have a representative at her conferences, the chances were, and she made sure of it, that they were going to miss out on important news when it broke. And it changed the mold for women reporters. And then now, and well in her stride, she moves on to the next level. When her husband died, Harry Truman, the president who followed him, asked if she would chair the Commission on Human Rights. There she became a driving force behind the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. which in the end, over 50 member states all over the world signed to produce the most important template ever written to protect human beings on this earth. Now, as it happens, this is profoundly important today as a new need has emerged to protect the right of privacy. And all that is coming about because of the sheer scale of digital invasion into people's lives. Invasion is probably the wrong word, digital involvement or immersion in people's lives. So by the time she died, she had carved out such an important record as a First Lady. It was one against which all her successors have been measured. President Truman later called her the First Lady of the world in tribute to her human rights achievements. Now, my point of that little story and those three examples is this. Here was a woman with very little going for her, yet convictions grew within her and she committed herself to them with spectacular results as she grew to become a leader of millions. Now that brings me to the last 2 points of my speech. They're about you as individuals. What might you make of this idea of leadership? And why might it be so important to you? They're both quite simple and they don't take a great deal of time. First, if you find something which you truly believe in and you commit yourself to it, all else will follow. You will, almost whether you want to or not, become a leader. You should never underestimate the growing community around you who, a bit like the pebble thrown into the pond where the ripples spread right out to the far edges of that pond onto the bank, you will influence those people, and in a myriad of different ways, you will lead them. You won't do it because you're striving to be a leader. You will simply become one, and you will inspire others to lead. Now, why do I think this is so important today? Humankind, in my view, faces three existential challenges. The first is all to do with the technology revolution. The second is to do with how we handle climate change. And the third is that our species is heading towards another of its global confrontations of one culture against another. Now, each of those topics I could probably spend another 10 minutes at least on in talking to you about. But what I really am trying to say to you is that if you wish to become a leader and you start from these foundations, the world really does need you. So if any of what I have said chimes with you, you may want to remember this. A good leader inspires people to have confidence in the leader. A great leader inspires people to have confidence in themselves. Eleanor Roosevelt said that. Thank you.